We'll get this started with some pass coverage plays. I think the first 8 is going to be Roquan in coverage, be it man or zone. One of the interesting things from this year, after 2025, is that because of the coverage instability or inconsistency of our other inside linebackers, Buchanan and Simpson, at some point we went to this like 3-3 look. This is a 3rd and 10 against the Dolphins, where basically he's playing will linebacker into the boundary. Roquan Smith is a Mike linebacker historically, but for 2025 on some of these 3rd downs, he was playing will. Essentially, you're going to see him man against A-Chain multiple times in this game. I think I'll give you 2 of them in this film study. This is a great play. He's using the sideline as an ally, if you will. It's our 3-3 look, like I said, where Simpson is kind of like a spy, sometimes a blitzer. Hamilton is oftentimes involved as the 3rd, quote, inside linebacker. Here you got edge defender Green, edge defender Van Noy, nose tackle Travis Jones. 2 of the second 3 is Simpson and Smith. I think Hamilton's been pulled out of the box here against the tight end. But in any case, you can see precisely where Tua is looking. This is man, all right, on HM. It's man everywhere else, I should say. And Simpson isn't really necessarily rushing immediately. He's looping around, so he's just not going to get there in time because Tua sees a matchup that he likes. And you know, you would too if you were the quarterback. But Roquan's very smart with how he gets this done. Inside position, basically trailing with Achane and not trying to overtake or gain more ground. Essentially willing to stay inside out leverage because he knows he's got the sideline as his friend. And like I said, it's a 3rd and 10. You'll see, I think, at least 2 more other instances in this video of him just playing with really smart leverage. It kind of surprised me, to be honest with you, when I first saw him deployed as a will linebacker. But with the progression or lack thereof at times for Buchanan and Simpson in coverage, I think the coaching staff just didn't trust those guys to the extent that they were willing to play with them as the will linebacker on some of these high leverage 3rd downs. This next one, Roquan is lined up at the more typical Mike linebacker position, which is set to the field. The blue line here illustrates where the ball is in terms of the hash. The NFL hashes are pretty close together, I think 18 feet 6 inches apart, so there's more space into the boundary. In any case, the boundary is the bottom side of the field here, bottom side of the screen here, and that's where you can see Teddy Buchanan is lined up. Roquan actually has his feet on the midline, but technically he's the Mike lined up to the field. It's a 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, and we're in our 4-2-5 nickel. Baltimore's taking control of this game at this point. It's 28-6. This is a great play, man. It's a great reaction by Roquan, and I think him and Buchanan are reading the running back. The running back's release is kind of illustrated by this blue line. Ends up being a wheel. This is kind of mesh-ish concept, if you ask me, because the running back releases to the bottom side of the screen. Buchanan is pushing, and he's actually clearing over the top of two routes by the Dolphins from into the boundary. And so Buchanan is matching this running back. Roquan pushed in that direction as well. And then he will very smartly kind of put a stop sign on because Buchanan has got this running back. Technically, I think it's a receiver lined up at running back. And then this route here from the other side of the field, I'm not sure who that is. It might be Washington. He's winning. He's left behind Wiggins. Wiggins was picked or rubbed, whatever you want to call it. And Roquan misses a huge opportunity here to make a statement. You know, ended up only being a Pro Bowler for 2025. I think that makes sense because of, you know, the level of our defense was just extremely low. There's a lot of space for this receiver here. Plays like this, making the play in terms of not allowing a completion. This could be a touchdown, to be honest with you, if this ball is caught. But the missed opportunity, right, to make an interception and really close things out on a game that, you know, Baltimore was really in control of. The defense played well for parts of the game, but we're fortunate we didn't give up more points. Roquan really, if you ask me, covering up an opening here that was, I should rewind here and show you how it happened. There's Wiggins lined up to the top side, and you can see there's an obvious pick, screen, rub, whatever you want to call it, by tight end up to the top side, and that causes Wiggins to be behind. Roquan is pointing, communicating something to Buchanan. Buchanan's already all over his coverage, the running back or wide receiver who was in the backfield, at least pre-snap. Not much pressure on Tua. An opportunity for a big play for Miami, and Roquan takes it away. Like I said, I think if you pull this back a little bit and he catches that ball in stride, we're talking about this receiver here. Roquan's not in the window. He's probably still running. Our prototypical third down look, mugged up with a couple of guys lined, a couple of extra potential blitzers lined up on the line of scrimmage. Just 3rd and 8, week 8 against the Bears. So we'll kind of skip around here. And one of the things as an inside linebacker, or really anyone who's mugged up, you gotta, once the ball is snapped, if you're dropping out, you gotta turn your back and get your eyes on routes. I think that's one thing that Roquan does really well. Basically, inside out focus on the routes. You can see that there's 3 receivers up here to the outside where Roquan is, and watch when he drops out. He turns his back and gets his eyes to the outside. This really kind of ends up being a buzz or insert cover 3 with, I think it's Gilman dropping down here to be another second level defender. Remember, this is a 3rd and 8, and we're dropping out to what I would call an insert or a buzz cover 3. It looks a little irregular because this is the backside here, because we've got, essentially oftentimes a man call on the backside of a cover 3 into the boundary. So that's why you've got a zone turn here for Wiggins. Clearly a safety in the middle of the field. I would say you've got 4 underneath droppers here. The differential as far as their depth is due to Gilman initially lining up at safety depth, the 3rd level of the defense. But in any case, Roquan dropping out, you can see the eyes are to the outside, inside out, reading 3 to 2. If there's only 2 receivers out there, he'd be reading 2 to 3. In any case, 3 clears him, and so he snaps his eyes back to the quarterback. There's the line to gain for the Bears. It's a really great play on an early 3rd and 8, if you ask me. Tackle, not allowing any yards after the catch whatsoever. That's the one thing I noticed in watching the film over the last 2 or 3 days, is that when we're playing some of these zones, whether it's a Tampa 2, cover 3, a typical cover 2, or quarter half / cover 6, Roquan's really good at getting to his depth. And sometimes in 2025, I thought his drops were shorter than I would have maybe asked or thought an inside linebacker should take. But you can see his depth here. He's 1 yard away from the line to gain, which is the -38. Compare that to Hamilton's depth, who's even a little bit more shallow. In any case, a real great play to deny the Bears yards after the catch, and obviously not give them a chance to get the first down at all. Another look at the same coverage and a very similar dynamic, if you ask me, as far as Roquan's reaction. This is, of course, his fantastic game that he played against the Browns in Week 2. I think he was AFC Defensive Player of the Week. But in any case, we're into the 3rd quarter. Baltimore's well in control. The score is 20-3 at this point. And it's going to be another insert or buzz cover 3. So what I mean by that is you've got a 2-high safety structure initially, and then post-snap, we're dropping one of the safeties down to create 4 second-level defenders and basically play a cover 3, if you ask me. From a route standpoint, it's a really, really slow developing route by, I think it's Fanning, the rookie tight end, or he's a rookie last year, bringing his route to the inside of Hamilton and then trying to run what I would consider like a sail concept, almost kind of flood. But in any case, it's the same coverage, And I think what you get an idea about here is that Roquan's reactions, his recognition of some of these routes, is just vastly superior to the other inside linebackers that we're putting out there. That's why we spend so much time in dime. Not only are we trying to get as many coverage guys on the field, Hamilton, Humphrey, etc., we're also trying to get some of our weaker coverage guys, Buchanan and Simpson, off. But there's the cover 3 nature of what I'm talking about. 4 defenders in this box here. 4 second-level defenders in that box. Roquan, may be difficult to pick up there. I tried to put a little header with his name and jersey number over top of it. And then the 2 corners getting depth. They don't have the depth yet. I'm using the Once Sports Telestrator, obviously, to kind of show off the graphics. But it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about when I say, cover 3 buzz or insert. The recognition, if you ask me, for some of these games was elite. Meaning routes that are thrown underneath. Flacco was shook for real. I went back and watched this game and had even a more harsh opinion of Flacco than I did in my reaction, and then some film study videos after the Ravens' home win over Cleveland. Flacco was just very unnerved and willing to throw the ball underneath super quick. And, maybe that played to our strengths at that time. We know other people were able to take advantage of our pass defense. Roquan here making a really nice tackle once again to deny, any yards after the catch. Different coverage scheme here for Baltimore against the Browns, but the same dynamic as far as focusing on Roquan Smith. It's a Tampa 2. Now, we're in a one high safety look pre-snap, right? That's Starks back in the middle of the field. This is in the fourth quarter. The game is, for all intents and purposes, over at this point. Kind of a cool concept from the Browns, if you ask me. Play action, over concept. The tight ends route is a little bit weird, if you ask me, being as it's a play action and you've got an over concept from left to right. But in any case, I think they confused Flacco, and some of these times he's, a little bit unsure of what he's seeing. This is a nice adjustment by Kyle Hamilton and gives you an idea of how he can be utilized. So let me pause this a little bit right as we get into the Tampa 2 look. So Tampa 2 look, you got a corner in the flats. There's Roquan and Buchanan. I feel like Roquan is a little bit too close to the middle of the field as opposed to being pushed out to the top side of our screen a little bit more. But watch this over route here. If it's a vertical, then Hamilton's going to run with it. He's the middle runner, whatever you want to call it. But because that route doesn't go vertical, Hamilton doesn't need to get that depth. And so I don't know if there's a call made between those two guys. Just super aware play here by Hamilton because he's basically going to jam or run into that over concept. There's a huge difference going back and watching the film. A massive difference between the reactions of Roquan versus Simpson, and in particular Buchanan. I'm talking about from zone coverage. There's multiple examples of plays like this where Roquan's reactions are superb as far as getting himself in position to tackle a running back or tight end underneath, but there's no corresponding reaction from Buchanan, because what you want is you want to be able to triangulate or trap any catches that are underneath. And so often you see examples of Buchanan kind of drifting at the end of his drop. I'm talking about what his feet are doing here. The reason why I'm really going over this with you guys is because this play is a perfect example of a catch and then, maybe a yard after the catch, but it's really because Buchanan is so late and or Roquan is early. He just sees things faster. It makes sense, right? He's a veteran, high-paid guy, 5-time all-pro player. In my opinion, looking back at the draft now after watching some film and focusing on the inside linebacker position, I know that some people had complaints about not addressing a center. It certainly appears that the Ravens front office and coaching staff has a different plan, or at least different options, right? Because some of the centers, specifically 2, were taken a little bit earlier than expected. Will linebacker would be the other spot that, even though we have 2 guys, Simpson and Buchanan, can't help but look at some of the talent in the draft, particularly Jacob Rodriguez, and think, a guy like that would have been absolutely revolutionary to stick next to Roquan Smith from a reaction and awareness standpoint. Another example of talking about the reactions, the differential, and what Roquan can offer us, in particular in zones. It's a great illustration, if you ask me, of his awareness. It's a play action. Week 17, that dominant win against the Packers. I say dominant because of what Derrick Henry and the offense were able to do. Defense obviously struggled against Malik Willis. But it's a play action concept on a 1st and 10. We're up by 13 points. As an aside, you got Kyle Hamilton here. It's a nickel personnel group. The edge defender here is Draymond Jones. Kyle Hamilton has walked up into the box essentially as an outside linebacker with this front. So we've created a 7-man front from our nickel personnel group, which is, fantastic. But you got one wide receiver to the downside. It's a tight end, actually, illustrated by this orange line. And because there's no threat, there's no pass threat there, that allows Marlon Humphrey to fall off and help deal with this pseudo-over concept from the other side, illustrated by that yellow line. It's a play action. Roquan sees it. Look at the difference between Simpson coming downhill right now. And, his feet, if he were here, obviously his read would be different, but he wouldn't be able to do what Roquan is getting ready to do, which is turn his back and run underneath of it. And the combination of Marlon falling off, fine work here, and Roquan underneath totally takes this route away. I think it's Golden, the rookie wide receiver. I know that, some may think I'm harsh on Buchanan and Simpson. What I'm describing to you is we have elite recognition and reaction to some of these pass concepts, in particular out of zone from Roquan. We don't have corresponding reactions that fit next to him really at all, a lot of times from Buchanan and Simpson. As an aside, if Malik Willis stayed with it, maybe there's that, dig from the other side of the field to Christian Watson, who gave, us some problems in that game, and he's certainly open here against Wiggins. But in any case, Willis is out of there, right? Maybe it's Green, I think, here getting a little bit of pressure, but I think Willis had already decided to leave a little bit too soon and take off, and he gets a short completion to the top side of the field. My point is, I think the design is to get the ball to that over concept, get to this route here. And between Roquan and Marlon, they take it away. And then the secondary part of this, maybe Willis could have stayed with it longer. He saw something he didn't like. Roquan was a part of taking away the first part of the read. He can do that. He's got that type of awareness, that type of recognition and reaction. There's just no other inside linebacker on our roster who's going to be able to turn their back, flip their hips, and run underneath of that type of route to make the window a whole lot smaller for the quarterback, if they actually choose to throw it there. Another play from the Browns game in week 2. I think we've got like a tandem or banjo read between Roquan and Buchanan on the running back. This is man free or cover one, whatever you want to call it. And I love this coverage, the way we do this against A-gun. So what I'm talking about, especially now, a lot of teams love this kind of one-man screen. Some people call it an escort screen. It basically is the tight end going out into the flats and leading the way for the running back, in this case Judkins, to be a potential one-man screen. It's a banjo read from Roquan and Buchanan. Basically, if the running back released into the other direction, crossing the quarterback's face here or crossing behind the quarterback, my suspicion is that Buchanan would go with him and Roquan would settle in the middle of the field. Again, it's man-free. It's a great reaction, if you ask me, from Marlon Humphrey on the tight end, and then Roquan fitting to the outside. That's one thing that's going to show up in this video that I'm going to try to talk to you about, and I feel like I noticed, is he's got really great awareness when he's supposed to get out here in space. Of course, there's the really popular mistackle or well-scrutinized mistackle against James Cook in the loss to the Bills in week 1, and maybe there was another one. Perhaps I'm thinking of 2024 against Jaylen Warren. But in any case, there's a lot of film that I found this week or the last 2 or 3 days of him getting out here near the bottom of the numbers or even the top of the numbers and taking proper leverage. In this case, what I mean is, I'll give the end zone angle so you can see it for yourself. You'll actually lose Roquan for a minute. Again, you got what I think is a banjo read between Roquan and Buchanan on that running back. There's just no hesitation here at all from Roquan. Once he gets to the read, he's gone. Like I said, he'll disappear off screen for you. And the idea, or what I'm trying to sell you on a little bit, is that since the running back went to our right, or the right side of the Roquan and Buchanan tandem, Buchanan settles in the middle of the field as the low hole dropper. If the opposite had occurred, if the running back had gone here, Buchanan would disappear off screen, and then Roquan would settle probably into the same area that Buchanan settles, illustrated by this kind of like blue area line. In any case, like I said, he's off screen, but you do get an idea of the fact that he was not going to be out leveraged. I'll try to pause it right when the ball is caught. You can see what I mean, that he's not inside leverage here. He was making sure to get around this block if possible by, I believe that's Njoku dealing with Marlon Humphrey. I think he was perhaps player of the week for the defensive player of the week for the AFC that week. I could be wrong. He just played fantastic. What's weird is his stats for week 17 and 18 were really suppressed. Talking about Roquan, only 6 tackles total in the last 2 regular season games. Not sure if there was an injury or what the differential was as far as his output. 2 more plays in coverage here. Gonna utilize both of these as an opportunity to talk about his recognition on screens and ability to make tackles from inside out. This is a zone reaction. It's almost like an invert Tampa 2 is the way that I would describe it. In any case, it's a halfback screen to the boundary. You get, really what I think is a clear out route here by the downside split end. And then the motion man almost running a wheel. Roquan's going to fit underneath of the scheme. maybe between the blockers, I guess I should say. So really nice tackle, if you ask me, on a second down. Some of his tackles aren't, I would say, picturesque from the standpoint of an inside linebacker tackling like chest to chest or anything like that. But I will say that he made a number of these tackles in 2025. I have no idea what his missed tackle percentage is. Of course, like I said, the big one that gets a lot of discussion for good reason was the missed tackle against James Cook on a really big play that I think was down to the bottom side of the screen again. And there may have been one against the Steelers this season or perhaps in 2024. But I thought his reactions to screens and short passes was often perfect. And that kind of got lost in the shuffle because of how poorly coordinated and statistically below average our defense actually was. This is the last play here for the portion of this video from pass coverage standpoint. To me, there's only two guys on our defensive roster that make this play. One of them is Roquan, and the other one's Kyle Hamilton. It's a 3rd and 16, and he's stressed here. What I mean is he's put in conflict. We're going to drop out to a zone blitz. So showing a little bit of a mug look by these 6 guys being up front, or these 5 guys being up front, and then Hamilton as the 6th player is actually going to blitz. We're bringing Starks down, dropping Roquan out across. Marlon to the top side is essentially a mirrored position. It's what I call a zone blitz or a 3 deep, 3 under from a mug look. Again, it's 3rd and 16, and to me, if Roquan doesn't make this tackle, then A-Chain's got a great opportunity to make a big play and get a first down, maybe even more. He's stressed because he has no help, and what I mean by that is the 3 deep, 3 under scheme, this corner, Awuzie, is going to get depth if he gets a deeper route. That's his responsibility. And so, as a result, there is no one out here whatsoever to help Roquan with the running back catching the ball, the first blocker who he will engage, and then the second blocker as well. In that space, momentarily, it's a 3-on-1. And he knows it, he being Roquan. There's a huge gain possible here. If he doesn't get to this ball with the right leverage, then the running back's just going to catch it and get out of the gate down here to the sideline. So what he's got to do is he's got to flash to the outside, and he does so. I thought about showing you guys the end zone angle because he actually gets to the outside of the blocker here, meaning he gets to this side and forces the running back to wind this back, and then Roquan actually is taking his left hand right now and framing that offensive lineman up and using it to catapult himself off of the offensive lineman, fold back inside, and make the tackle. Yeah, there's guys converging, don't get me wrong, but if Roquan was to be on the inside, which would be a really poor decision, if he was to be underneath of this, well, then the running back is just catching it here, and it's an easy first down, obviously. If Roquan was to just commit totally to the outside angle, then the running back's going to catch it and going to get in here, and now he's just got to make Starks miss, and he's going to get the first down. I think this is a great play that's very underrated. Granted, it is on 3rd and 16, so I understand people say, hey, that's just a tackle that you're supposed to make if you're getting paid that amount of money. While I would agree with that, I don't want to take it for granted. I think that's a really great play out in space with no help to his outside or inside whatsoever. I probably should have stopped it and used Once Sports to do a distance tracker between those guys there. You can see what I mean when I say 3-on-1 momentarily, and Roquan gets the job done.